In going through these envelopes in years gone by, there have been $500 checks. We've had major contributors that have given us $500 and $1,000 and $1,500. One business, which is bankrupt, one time gave us $10,000. That's not here this year, so it is hard.
Donations to Chattanooga's Forgotten Child Fund have been slow to arrive this year, held up, no doubt, by the recession. But the needy children haven't gone away. Will they be forgotten after all this Christmas? Hello again, I'm Scott Montgomery. Christmas is just 3 days away, and yet the Chattanooga Fire and Police Department's Forgotten Child Fund has been struggling to bring in donations. Today we'll find out how that could affect this year's campaign to bring a Merry Christmas to needy Chattanooga children.
Even if things don't get better, the Santa train will roll again Christmas Eve. There's no question about that. Chattanooga firefighters and police officers will bring Christmas cheer to the neediest children on their list. But they may not get around to everyone who has applied for help if donations don't improve.
The firemen and policemen brought us gifts. I'm glad they didn't forget.
At WDOD Radio, Forgotten Child Fund organizer Earl Freudenberg is seeing fewer checks come in this year, and they're smaller than usual.
I've done this for 25 years now, and this has been the most difficult year.
Hundreds of dollars may sound like a lot, but it will take thousands more to pay for all of this year's toys.
Another check for $15. I challenge the citizens of Lookout Valley to match this.
Parents are already picking up toys for their children, and it's clear the need for help is as great as ever.
Prices are high these days, and toys is getting higher and higher, you know. So, by they giving me, it do give them a better Christmas.
Next, hey, Earl Freudenberg will join us in the studio. Don't go away. Welcome back to Tell Us What You Think. Today, the Forgotten Child Fund, one of Chattanooga's biggest Christmas charity programs, but one that's been hard hit by the recession. Earl Freudenberg is our guest today. You may know him better as Hey Earl of WDOD Radio fame here in Chattanooga. Earl is also one of the movers and shakers behind the Forgotten Child Fund, and of course he has supported that program for a quarter of a century now. That makes it sound old, but 25 years.
A long time. We did our first fundraiser for the Forgotten Child Fund, Scott, back in 1966 in front of the radio station on a cold Sunday afternoon, and people would come by and put 50-cent pieces. Back then, we had half dollars and dollars. And I think our first fundraiser netted something like $300.
Wow. So is that...
We've come a long way,
That's
baby.
how it got started, just in a small way, right?
In a very small way. Well, actually, it started with the help of you folks here at Channel 3 back when Roy Morris was here, and Officer Johnny Wright approached Roy late one night, Christmas Eve, I believe, saw some children. Roy got together with some of the folk in the newsroom, and they put together some Christmas cheer, and that's really how the fund got started.
I'm not going to claim credit for that. I wasn't here way back then, but...
that's been several years ago.
Yeah, several. But it's nice that it's grown to the point where you have quite a few volunteers with the fire and police department.
Well, we couldn't do it without the help of the police and fire department and the school patrol. Oh, boy. Those ladies and guys that you see on the corner every morning and every afternoon, getting the kids off the bus and out of the car into the classroom, they really do a tremendous amount of work every year. Chief Bullard and her people, they put together a fine force, and they're well organized, too.
The program, exactly how does it work? You provide toys to needy children. What do you make a list, or how does it?
Well, we have a telephone number which is listed in the telephone directory, and we usually start about the 1st of November, and people find out about it. You don't have to advertise it. People find out, that you're a charity and that you provide Santa Claus to youngsters where the circumstances in the home are unfortunate, and they start calling in, and we require them to make an appointment. And then they come down to our toy shop, and they're given a very thorough interview as to their financial background and so on. The names are submitted to a clearinghouse, which is a United Way agency. All charities belong to this, or a lot of charities do, that do this type of work. And once we find out that the clearinghouse has given us the go-ahead, then we'll fill the box, and we'll call the parents and say, look, your box is ready, you can come pick it up. And if they do not have transportation, there's always a helper of Santa Claus hanging around somewhere that will deliver the toys. And then on Christmas Eve, the pictures, I believe, that we saw at the beginning of the program, that's our Santa train. That is really the fun part of this whole ordeal. And the Santa train starts about 5:15 to 5:30, and we pick out 10 or 12 of what we consider to be the neediest families. And Santa Claus and all of his helpers personally deliver those toys.
Oh, boy, those kids' eyes, they just light up when you see them in the pictures.
It's fantastic. You can't keep a straight face after going into some of the homes. You know, we always carry a box of Kleenex in the back seat.
A good idea. The kids, though, these kids don't necessarily expect a big Christmas at all, do they?
Well, the children come from the types of backgrounds which you might expect from this type of situation. The father, and I use this phrase loosely, but he may be a drunk. The child can't help that.
Right.
A 6 or 7, 8-year-old cannot help his mother and father's habits, so to speak. There are situations where that there's just no money. You talk about a grandmother taking care of kids. You talk about a father that's out of work. You talk about sickness. Just this past week, we found out a very, very sad case, Scott. A family in a section of our city without any heat. So I got on the telephone to one of our good advertisers, Holcomb Garden Center. I says, Mr. Bill, we need a kerosene heater. Had a 10-week-old child. Now, Scott, anybody in their right mind couldn't let a child, a 10-week-old child, you know, sleep in a house without any heat, especially with that 20-degree weather we had this past week.
It's been cold.
So some good neighbors in the community got together, and the Forgotten Child Fund was able to help. And that family, I understand, is going to be on our Santa train. But that's the type of thing that you see every year.
I was going to say, the Santa train homes you go to, it's not unusual to find a house with no heat, is it?
No lights, no
lights,
heat, no food. I think one of the saddest stories was the year that I rode with the late Captain Euless Bettis. Bettis was on the force. I know you knew Captain Bettis. And we went down St. Elmo Avenue, and it was a cold, wet night. And the homes on St. Elmo Avenue looked pretty nice. So I thought, well, now, what are we doing in this neighborhood? Well, we walked into this house. They had a canvas up for the front door. There was no heat in the house, no electricity. And there was a little fella sitting in a wheelchair with no legs and 4 or 5 children there. And when Santa Claus walked in and opened up his big sack and pulled out toys for all of those children, it made them so happy. And I looked over at the little mother, and she says, Mr. Earl says, that's all we have for lunch. And there was a can of soup. They were using a long board with 2 blocks as their table. You talk about something, I mean, I can see that in my mind today and remember that little family. But, boy, they never forgot Santa Claus that night, and those kids were so happy when we left.
No doubt. It just brings everything to a family like that, and I'm sure they appreciate it. But it sounds like you and the people who are volunteers get a lot out of it, too. I mean,
get a lot out of it. My primary job is sort of the mouthpiece for the fund and to raise the money. I mean, we've done radio broadcasts from the malls. I take a lot of my talk shows. I take sound off. This year we've done 2 radiothons and on Sunday morning, and we've got a great community here that really cares. But as I told you at the beginning in that interview, the corporate donations are not there, the big donations.
Is that where the big slack has come this year?
Well, I could name you, I won't call any names, but I could name you several corporations that used to contribute $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to the campaign. We haven't seen those donations this year.
In faurness, too, they may have laid off
their
a number of
profits.
people.
Their profits probably aren't there.
Yeah.
Another businessman in this community gave us nearly $1,000 last year, and he told me, says, Earl, says, my business is sagging, says, I'm going to give you a check, and he gave us a nice donation, $100. But in years gone by, I've been able to do more. So, you know, you're seeing this type of thing. And I've been stressing the $15 donation. $15 provides Christmas for one child. And I have seen checks from retired people. One of the most touching stories happened out at Northgate Mall several Saturdays ago when we were on the air out there. An elderly gentleman and his wife walked up, and he handed me a $1 bill. He was on, on a cane. And he says, Mr. Earl, this is all I have, but I want to help provide Christmas for a youngster in Chattanooga.
That's something.
Leaves you speechless.
It really does. Hold that thought. We're going to come back and continue our discussion right after this. Stay with us. Today we're talking about the Forgotten Child Fund. After all, Christmas Eve is coming up and Christmas Day right after that. And there are a lot of children that wouldn't have a lot for Christmas at all without this. And Earl, kind of fill us in on how many kids you can help a year. It's a lot, isn't it? Really, it's a lot.
Well, we can help as many children as we have resources. It's just that simple. We planned this year for about 4,000. Now, we're talking about 4,000 children, but in a lot of instances, you're talking about several children in one family. I don't have a figure as to the number of families. We figure the $15 a piece, that's $60,000. Our toy bill, we've got two bills totaling $64,000 right now that have to be paid. Some of the toys we have left in boxes because we're not sure whether we're going to have the money to pay for them. They may have to be sent back. I sort of doubt we're going to send any back. We're going to do the very, very best we can. We did have to close our toy shop early. We had to shut our telephone lines down early because we had a backlog of applications and we just were in this uncertain situation. This past week has been sort of hit and miss. The ladies tell me that they've been filling about 100, 125 boxes a day. We started off last Monday with nearly 1,000 applications. So the frightening thing, Scott, is somebody is going to be left out. We hate to say that, but there's going to be people that are left out.
You're looking at about $45,000 so far?
Something like that, yeah. We will accept donations on into the new year. I mean, if there's a rich uncle somewhere out there that we don't know about, and he'd like to give us $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, why? Give me a call, 266-5117. I'll come pick the check up.
Well, it's certainly not too late this week, this Christmas week, because you have the toys and you have a bill for them, and you need the money to pay that off.
We need the money to
Otherwise,
pay that
you
off.
Return the toys to the manufacturer.
We hope we don't have to do that, and I can see a little light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we're about, I guess, 2/3, 3/4 of the way there on the money. By the time we get all the money in from the Chattanooga School Patrol, the School Patrol officers have been doing a super job going door to door in the neighborhoods asking folk for donation. We've been soliciting funds. You folks have done some stories for us here on TV3 that have just been tremendous, and we've seen some benefits off of that. The Free Press works with us. We work with them.
There's some challenges by people. That's interesting.
There have been some very interesting challenges. In fact, you showed that challenge that me reading there about Tifton, and City Commissioner John Lively brought me a check for $30.
Well,
now, I don't know whether he saw that story or not, but Commissioner, I really appreciate that. That was nice. It was really nice.
So, you know, I was thinking about the fact, you mentioned $15 will buy Christmas for one of these children. That's not a lot of money.
That's not a lot of money.
You could take your family out to eat steakhouse for
If
more
you see
than
what
that.
I'm spending on my kids, man, $15, you know, is a drop in the bucket.
So,
we had an interesting gimmick for the month of November. We said save 50 cents a day, 30
Mm-hmm.
days in November, $15. I had a very unusual experience happen at the radio station one day. A lady came in, and she had her daughter with her, and she had a little mayonnaise jar of quarters. And she says, I offered to write a check to you folks for $15, but my daughter wanted to come over, hey, Earl, and wanted to give you this jar of quarters to show you that she had saved her 50 cents.
Yeah.
We have one school here in the community, the Gans Middle Valley, and this is something, Scott, that I wanted to share with you. These youngsters, instead of having Christmas parties and exchanging gifts, these youngsters took up a collection and raised nearly $300 for the Forgotten Child Fund.
That's something.
Principal Ralph Miller and his staff up there, I commend them. And I wish there were more schools that would really get behind us the way this school has really been behind us, because after all, it's their youngsters that we're trying to help.
And it really teaches children something about sharing with others, too. It's a good project.
And let me say one thing, too. Anybody that would like to ride our Santa train this Tuesday evening, be out at the Fire Training Center, 3200 Amnicola Highway, about 5 o'clock. We have 2 CARTA buses, and if we need more, I understand we can get them. You can leave your car there. Someone will watch the vehicle, so there won't be any problem there. Everybody is welcome to ride. Just get in line and follow the leader, Santa Claus, and help us to deliver the toys. We sing carols. That's what makes it. That's what makes this Christmas.
That would be really meaningful too for somebody that had contributed to the Forgotten Child Fund and wanted to really be part of that, you know, climax there, where you see those smiling faces of the kids that you're really helping and being a part of that. You know, one thing I was thinking, though, as you mentioned that you could donate as little as $15, some people may be afraid to give if they don't feel like they can make a big difference. It's like, oh, what will my $15
But oh,
make?
when
you know?
when you were looking at those checks the other day, you know, we had a stack about like that. Most of those were the $15 checks. By the time you add all of those up, that does make the difference, like you folks say here.
Your calculator got what, up in the hundreds from those checks.
That's right, and that's most of those donations are $15. We have a lot of grandparents that will send us $30 or $45. Say, I want to provide Christmas for 3 children. That's the number of grandchildren that I have. You know, there's all sorts of ways to come up with a method to give. It doesn't have to be $15. Some folks give $5, like the elderly gentleman on the cane gave me $1.
Yeah.
We appreciate all the money. And Scott, with our fund, 98 to 99 cents out of every dollar is spent on toys. We do have to pay for a telephone. Ma Bell doesn't give us those telephone lines that we operate. We do have to buy some postage and some stationery and, you know, routine office expenses. We have to pay for that. We have to occasionally buy boxes. But most of the stuff, we knock on doors and say, hey, we need this. And the people of the community have been very generous to help us with our supplies.
The toy suppliers, yeah, those toys were like stacked up in the warehouse there, the Fire Training Center when we were there. And they told me it was a lot, there were a lot more of them earlier. A lot of people have already picked up,
Sure have.
their toys. Do you get a discount on those toys?
We're able to take that $15 and buy a lot more than if you go to the store and use that $15 for toys. The people that we have used, our suppliers, have been with us for a long time, and they realize the fun. And they sell us these toys a lot of times below cost. A lot of times we'll buy toys that may have been sold to a big department chain a couple of years ago. They weren't used, they were sent back, they're still in the box, they're still sealed up. The department stores want brand new stuff. We'll take something that's 2 or 3 years old in the box. Kid doesn't know the difference. I mean, football's 3 or 4 years old, he can still play with it.
They love them too.
They sure do. And we don't buy fancy toys. You're not talking about Nintendos and Rector sets and VCRs and things like that. You're talking about a basketball, a football, maybe a sand bucket or something, you know, for a child, a little toy car, a coloring book, a package of crayons, small dolls. That's the type of thing you're talking about. We're not spending our contributors' money in such a fashion that they would be ashamed of.
It's all volunteers, too.
Everything is volunteer. Nobody gets a dime.
Except for you. Well, you handle the money, but you never get to.
That's true. That's true.
So.
But nobody, you know, everybody is volunteer. Everybody works for nothing, and I think we're well organized. We have a super board of directors. Our president is Ron Delker with the fire department. Our secretary is Roy Ellen Lamar with the police department. Our treasurer is Sam Swope, who's a prominent businessman here in Chattanooga. And, of course, Chief Bullard and myself, Peggy Bullard, School Patrol, and myself, we're vice presidents. I'm in charge of publicity, and she's in charge of the toy store. So, you know, all of us are dedicated to this cause, and we have one goal, and that's to make sure that a lot of children have Christmas that wouldn't have Christmas in this community.
Has the need been rising in recent years? Have you seen more and more applications?
We've seen it go up every year.
It doesn't level off at all? It just keeps going up?
We've seen it go up every year. And this year, as I say, we had to shut our telephone lines off quite a bit earlier than maybe we wanted to.
But you just knew you couldn't
we had the backlog of applications. We felt that these folk had already submitted their application, and we're going to try to fill those. We're trying to fill those. I don't know what the status is going to be. I feel, though, pretty sure that there may be several hundred children that we'll not be able to take care of because of the shortage.
How early in the year do you open up the application process?
We usually start about November the 1st. They find out some way. People find out, you know, that we're taking applications. Our number's been in the book for 25 years on the Forgotten Child Fund, so I don't know how people find out about it, but they always find out, and we usually start. We started this year, I think, the 1st of November, and we had already had a couple of thousand applications the first week in November, so you can see that applications came in very rapidly.
Word of mouth, I guess.
Sure.
Is there anything, does the family have to be the first time they've ever received help, or could it be a family that's gotten help before?
We have repeats, but we do try, through the clearinghouse with their assistance, to screen these calls and to screen these applications. We try to make sure that if one of the other fine agencies in Chattanooga is going to play Santa Claus to that youngster, we don't want to duplicate. And, you know, we got a pretty good track record on that.
For example, I know the Salvation Army has some programs to help people at Christmas time where the people will come shop for toys at a warehouse or whatever. And so you don't want to duplicate.
We don't want to duplicate. We want to try to get to as many needy children as possible. And I don't want to insinuate that all of the people that we help, you know, the children come from homes with tragic background and things like that. A lot of times you've got sickness. You've got a mother that may be ill. You've got a father that's been laid off, or maybe some high medical bills. And they're getting by, you know. They have bread and potatoes and something to eat. They just don't have any extra money for Santa Claus.
Well, Earl, we're about out of time here, but thanks a lot.
Merry Christmas to you.
Another 25 years.
I want to see you Tuesday night on the Santa train, okay?
Right. Appreciate you being here. We'll be back with a final word right after this. We've all heard the saying, charity begins at home. Trouble is, this year, charity is often staying at home. Sometimes we get the feeling that helping others isn't worth the effort unless we can make some kind of big donation. But charities like the Forgotten Child Fund aren't asking for a lot. Just $15 can give a needy kid a Christmas, and it's not too late to help. That's this edition of Tell Us What You Think. I'm Scott Montgomery. Have a great Christmas, and I'll catch you again next week.